Welcome to Focus. I'm Pearl Alley, your host, and tonight's guest we have Elizabeth Scholder. Welcome to Focus, Elizabeth.
Thank you, Pearl.
And tell us a little bit about what you're going to show us today.
Well,
and what do you do?
Thank you. I have a big range of oil paintings here, mainly. There's a few slides that show some sculptures that I did. It's mostly, I would say, in a category of realistic slash impressionist style.
Mm-hmm. Now, how long have you been painting?
Actually, I was painting all my life. I actually never ever really played, unless you could call painting playing.
Oh, that sounds like fun. Now, did you start in school? Did you go to school for
yeah,
college or
really,
anything?
it's all I wanted to do was to be a painter. But when I went to school, I went to Syracuse University, and I have my bachelor's in illustration.
Oh, wow.
And a master's in art education.
And you teach also, right?
Yeah, I taught for 20 years in New York and Virginia at high school and college level. And then I moved down here to be near my older parents. And I teach so far just part-time at Cocoa Beach Library.
Oh, great, great. Well, now you've got a palette here and you look like you're ready to start painting. So you want to show us and tell us a little bit about what you're doing?
Sure. Okay.
And I know flesh tones are a little bit difficult, so kind of explain that to us, because we'd all like to know.
Well, first of all, this painting is very monochromatic, and because that's how I start out, is I get all the range of values, as if it were a black and white. I usually work with just burnt umber or raw umber.
And
but
if I can just interrupt you, monochromatic, for those that don't know, could you just explain that to us?
Oh, that's very easy. Like I used to tell my high schoolers, is mono is a prefix that means one, and chroma is a word that has to do with color. So you put it together.
One color.
So different shades of one color. So what I did at first is I was a little concerned because my background started going into part of this lady's leg, and I thought, uh-oh, I want to fix that before it looks like she's got a hole in her leg.
Now, let me just ask you, when you started this, because you've already have a ready-made painting here started, how do you start? What do you start with, the figure first? Do you draw it in? Do you paint it in?
Yeah,
or
good
how do you start?
I do my paintings from a combination of drawings from models and also from photographs. And I'm starting a new series that is going to be ladies, like bathing suit or a dress that is clingy and with different kinds of flowers and really blown up flowers, so like lilies that are as big as the lady. I was trying something new. I'm reading about what flowers mean and relating them in kind of like a sense of visual poetry.
Now, when you're mixing this color, I'm seeing a little bit of a tan color.
Well, I'm
Tell
going
us
to
a little
finally
bit
get
about,
started, yes.
Maybe you could just tilt your palette just a little bit so the camera can see it.
Well, anyway, when I was in college, one of the things I struggled with, and I didn't struggle with a lot because I was good at teaching myself. In the 1970s, it was very laissez-faire. But the professor came by and he told me, start with your white and then just dip into a little bit of a primary red. In my case, I'm using a little orange. And then, there it is. Shockingly, to a novice, green, because green is a complement to red. That means they're opposite colors. When the opposites come together, you get a sense of brownness. So you can see, possibly, from the camera angle, that what I have here is a much more drab color than what I mixed up here.
Very nice, yeah, that is very nice.
It becomes more vibrant, so then I can start going over what I did for shadows.
Now, when you go in with do you start with your shadows first or your highlights? What do you start with first?
Okay, I'm trying to kind of match the tones of the underpainting. So I was working up that because I actually didn't like that greenness. And there's a couple ways you can darken it. You can add burnt umber, and that helps with the shadows. Burnt umber is just a rich brown. Or you can go with a darker red-green mixture. Again, like I say, those are complementary colors.
Now, depending on the skin tone, how do you, I was taught when I was in school that you have green, like you have a green undertone under this, and there's also purple undertone. So depending on your flesh color, the undertone's going to make a big difference. So is that, do you kind of go by that also?
Yeah, only I'm doing these in a quite imaginary kind of way. I'm using this as an opportunity to show actual flesh tone, but sometimes I use what is referred to, Pearl, as arbitrary color. That means color that is not necessarily aligned with what the object is. It's the color that the artist chooses. And
so, for instance, if the flesh you think is supposed to be, you know, pink or a little bit tan or something, you would make it purple or blue or another color.
Yeah, I mean, like I used to do, I had a series of faces, male, female faces, and they were in blues and greens. And my son called them the underwater people.
Ah.
So,
Now do you get more into the different colors of the body, or are you just going to stay pretty much with the neutral tones that you're using?
I'm going to keep it pretty much the flesh tones. I wanted to show about that, but I wanted, as long as I'm still working on this painting, I'm going to show you an idea of how I'm going to try to keep this painting in the monochromatic theme. But I don't want this lady to show up like she stands out so much against the background because she's really, really light. So I'm going to mix in a cool color for the dress, and then I'm going to use some alizarin crimson, which is kind of like a fuchsia. It's a red that's got some blueness in it. And so her dress, because there's that little bit of greenness in the blue of the background, it will stand out nicely, and then she becomes somewhat more of a focal point. Right now, I feel like she is being a bit overwhelmed by the background. You know, when you are a student, college, even high school, you know, you're always thinking about these things very consciously. But after years of experience, my students used to say, "Miss Scholder, how do you do that?" And I just tell them years of experience. And then the wheels start turning, and you can tell that they're trying to figure out how many years that
yeah, we never want to talk about. How old are you, actually?
Yeah. What does she mean? So it's kind of funny, you know. You got to have some humor in when you're demonstrating things. But here we go. I love oil paints so much.
Now that you're using an ultramarine blue, is that?
Yes, but also I'm going to plan eventually to get some alizarin crimson into this. Why I love the oil paint is because it is so forgiving. It can allow me to come back into this a few minutes later and still work in there and lighten it if I need to, whereas the acrylics, oh, you got it down and then you're almost stuck.
Did you work with acrylics ever, or is that something?
I only did acrylic work as an illustration major because I guess it was what they were doing in the late 70s in that field of work for print. And then I took it up again, teaching the use of acrylics because it is much easier for beginners. The students like it.
Now I've noticed you put it lighter here and darker inside. Is that your light's going to be coming? You're showing the direction of your light now?
Light is coming from above.
Okay.
And she is a little, you see the shadow here and her arm. So this part will be more in shadow. It'll be like a dark umber, and then the light will be there. Yeah.
I noticed that's one of the hardest things for people to understand is where to put the light on the picture.
Right.
You know, it's like, is it coming from here or the other side? That's so important, I think, when you're showing direction in light.
That's a really good point. And you know, Pearl, what I found out is that I had this wonderful teacher. His name is Murray Tinkleman. And he taught us to take photographs of our subjects and have a light source. And he said, once you have a light source, instead of like flash on the subject, it makes it look so much more three-dimensional.
Well, Elizabeth, we've got just a few minutes before we're going to take a break, so I'd like to show some of your other work if we could. Maybe we can zoom in on some of the other paintings. And tell us a little bit about this painting.
Oh, this is a painting based on, it was actually like an event. And this painting is dear to my heart.
It's wonderful.
Thank you. The man is dear to my heart. That is my husband, Jerry.
Oh, wow.
And we were walking in one of the old neighborhoods on the north side of Syracuse, New York. It was just those cedar shingles, and this was an actual moment in time I captured in a photograph and decided to make it into a painting.
That's just wonderful. I love that. It's quite a large painting also. Do you work large most of the time, or?
Yeah, I was inspired to work large by the painting professors I had at Syracuse, especially one named Jerome Whitkin. He's an internationally exhibited artist, and his paintings were so big, he had like a scaffolding across and
wow.
2 easels balancing them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And this one?
This one I was commissioned to do of a building, I guess you would say that's a Victorian brick house in Picton, Ontario, Canada.
Just beautiful.
Thank you. This is a different technique. When I was young, I used this technique more. I used a crow quill pen, which is a very tiny pen nib, and brown ink, because the ink is creating a subtle skeletal framework for me to build the painting on with watercolor.
And the next painting?
Oh.
Do we have another one we can show? Oh, okay. I guess I want to show you this. We're also, if you're interested in finding out a little bit more about when Focus is on the air, this is Senior Scene magazine and also Senior Life magazine. If you want to pick that up, it gives you our schedule. On Mondays at 6:30, Wednesdays at 7:30, and Thursdays, or I might have the times wrong on that, but on Thursdays. So check us out. We're in Senior Scene and Senior Life. And do we have a few minutes left? Maybe we can show a little bit more of your demo here if you want to finish up a little bit more there. Oh, we've got another picture.
Okay.
And this is?
Yeah, this one is my daughter when she was a little girl.
Oh, how
she's
wonderful.
30 now, and she's having our own first grandchild.
Oh, how wonderful. Look at that. What is she holding?
She's holding her first pet, which was a little hamster.
That's sweet.
Yeah, I used that technique with the brown ink and the crow quill pen.
And the next picture? Oh, this is a sculpture.
Yeah, I did have a foray into sculpture. When you're a high school art teacher, as I was for many years, you have opportunity to try different media. And so there is oil painting, my specialty, but I took a graduate course in sculpting the human figure. And we spent 6 weeks sculpting this same girl wearing a leotard, like kind of a Degas ballerina.
It looks like that.
Well, yeah, we did the whole figure, and then we also did the bust. It was really challenging.
Very nice. And what was that made out of? Just clay, or?
Yeah, it was ceramic. We created an armature and built it over it, and then we had to hollow it out by cutting her head across.
Oh my goodness. Well, now you're going to do a little bit of this one. You have another painting you want to show us too, right? But why don't you do a little bit more work on this, if you can? And
sure. Well, I'll go back to my concept of my concept of skin, because it's really good. I always tell my students is keep 2 shades at a time.
And we're going to take a little break, and we'll be right back with more Focus, so stay with us.
America is turning over a new leaf. The SmartWay leaf from the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. The SmartWay leaf will help you identify environmentally friendlier cars and trucks that can save you money. These vehicles are certified to be more fuel efficient and produce fewer greenhouse gases. And look for renewable fuels to improve our energy independence. Follow the leaf to epa.gov/smartway.
Welcome back to the second half of Focus. I'm Pearl Alley, your host, and in the studio with me I have Elizabeth Scholder. And Elizabeth is we're going to show a little bit of her painting, another painting that she's done, if we can zoom in on that. And this is called what?
Well, this is a scene from the Rhine River, and it is going to be a present for my daughter and son-in-law. Mike loves Tudor, and originally Heidi wanted a painting of the James River in Richmond, Virginia.
And those are your children?
Well, Mike is her husband.
Oh, okay.
I decided, for people that don't know necessarily a lot about how to even work with oil paints, that I would show you a trick that some people don't realize really works well, is the pliers to open the cap. For some crazy reason, back in the 70s, they used matches. And I guess it was expanding the cap so that it could loosen.
I can take that for you.
Oh, thank you very much. But the thing is, make sure they're clean. Yeah. The thing is, that's probably not as safe as pliers. And after years of experience teaching high school and college, you're thinking to yourself, well, always safety with the young people.
Now, can I ask you, you're dipping it in that little container.
Oh, yeah.
Is that your mineral oil?
Good point. This,
linseed oil?
Yeah,
what are you using?
I use a third of each, but it varies.
A third of what?
Oh, I'll explain. Thank you. It varies, Pearl, depending on things like humidity when I'm working, and also depending on how quick I want it to dry, and also how liquidy I want it to be. And so sometimes I'll do an underpainting with mostly just linseed oil to loosen up the paint. And, oh, I'm sorry, I meant turpentine. The basic paint thinner I'll start my underpainting with.
Okay, so kind of a thinned, drying, laid out.
Then the linseed oil is more viscous. And we also, artists or painters, also mix in some Damar varnish, which helps it dry and gives it a protective kind of sheen.
Now, you may have to drop your easel just a little, or your pail a little bit, so we can see what you're doing.
I'll try and bend a little bit.
Now, you're adding to this, so what are you doing that for?
Sure. Okay, what I did that I was, this painting I consider about 90% done. This painting is not intended to be photographically realistic. I like the splotches of color. It's giving it a sense of happiness and all that. But to directly apply to your question, I'm taking what's already there and adding on something to help bring out the boat. There's a couple things I'm going to do to bring out this ship as a focal point.
And maybe you can lower that.
Sorry.
Out just a little bit, because you're blocking where your work is.
Let me just hold it a little more differently. I got it. It's okay. So, thank you for telling me that. As I was saying, to bring out the ship, I am going to make deeper water around it, less of reflection. And I'm going to brighten up right here.
Now, what color are you using for that?
Oh, good question, because this is a different kind of blue than always people use in general. This is Prussian blue. It's very deep. Somebody might think like navy blue. And
that was always one of my favorite colors.
Prussian?
Yes.
And you know what else that I learned very early in life, because I did my first oil paintings when I was only junior high. And I learned that if you mix burnt umber with Prussian, you make black. And so I always subscribed to the philosophy of Monet, who is the father of Impressionism, which is to say, throw away the black. Over the years, my students would always say, Mrs. Scholder, do you have black? I can't find any black. And I say, well, you have to make it. And we go over, how do you make? And
I think that's one of the biggest things that people have a misunderstanding about, is how to mix colors. You know, most artists don't use straight out of the tube paints that have been in it for a while. So once you start to learn the mixtures, it's amazing the colors you can get, like mixing red, yellow, and blue to make brown, and all your browns, and it's just incredible how, like you're saying, mixing a Prussian blue with even a Van Dyke brown, you can get a nice black. And
exactly. And one thing that my students would start to learn when I would talk to them about, you can make a black. Well, truly you can't make a black, but you can make a very deep brown. And it will be usually either warm or cool, depending on what you put in it. You could make it with the burnt umber mixed with the Prussian, or you could use a different brown, with your Prussian. So I think that's enough of giving you the idea for now of what I would do with shadows, start to show this up more. And I'm really glad that my ship has gotten dry after a few days, because before break I was saying how I love oil painting, I really do. like the paint themselves as a media, because they blend and they stay moist. But sometimes you can have a problem from that, and that is because when it's moist, I kept mixing it in, and the chip was just staying gray. So now I can pop it up with some white. It's going to start to draw attention to like the front of the boat and be like, here is light coming on this area and more into shadow in that area. And you know, now that the gray isn't going to mix in, I can brighten up parts of it.
Oh, that makes a huge difference.
Well, I hope so, but of course, right now it's just going on roughly. But at least we see, at this point, some value changes. I have some tints happening.
Now, what about any kind of brush techniques and things like that that you could tell us about? Is there something specific that you might want to talk about?
Well, I will try to show you then on the mountain, because for the sake of demonstration, I will use the mountain. When I teach, I teach what I like to make for painting. So I always tell students, keep 3 brushes. Now, at this area, I only have the 2, but you maybe would have something with some highlights. No, I'm not going to keep my mountain like this necessarily. I was almost pleased with it already. But to give you the idea of technique, this is very, like I said, impressionistic. So we're seeing brush stroke. Now, let's say, through the non-magic of the camera, that I have my second brush that's more of a medium tone. Then I come in, and you go back and forth with the 2 different values. And that way...
So you're kind of blending them together?
Yeah, I'm just going to use my finger.
Oh, good.
Not necessarily.
We're kind of running out of time, and I really would like to show some of your other work on it. If they could bring them up on the monitor, or we've got another painting over here on the side. Now, tell us a little bit about this one.
Oh, okay. This painting was how do I say it? Well,
looks like a little party you were having.
Quote unquote commission. My daughter asked me when she was 25-ish for a birthday present to show wine bottles from Virginia and California.
Oh.
She was a travel nurse in California and grew up in Virginia.
I love the mountains in the background of that. It's beautiful.
And then I did a little trompe l'oeil with the glass, you know, and the cheese and the knife.
And can we see some of the other pictures? We've got a couple more to show in this one.
Well, this is part of that series I'm doing of women and flowers. And like I said, I was looking up meanings of flowers. Bluebells actually mean humility. And this lady is bowing. She's in a sense of submission.
That's beautiful.
She's relinquishing everything.
And do we have some other pictures? We have a couple others.
This one, you can't tell from the TV screen, but it is huge. It was a mural size. That was my daughter when she was a little girl, and we lived in New Hampshire.
And it looks like you like to do your family.
Well,
they're good models, aren't they?
Yeah, they're always there. You know, I think Norman Rockwell said that. Mary Cassatt, who never had her own children, would paint her nieces.
Oh, that's great. And we've got a couple more. Here's another one.
Yeah, this is like many of my paintings. It was inspired by a Bruce Springsteen song. I call it My Father's House.
Oh, that's wonderful. I love the colors in there.
Yeah, the young man is struggling. He is running through brambles and thorns and trying to get up there to his father's house.
And the next painting?
This was a piece I was commissioned to do in Winchester, Virginia. An exciting thing I had the opportunity was it was 4 foot by 6 foot. So I not only was having the challenge of matching colors she wanted for her living room, and colors to go with the skin colors of her kids, because she says, I want everything to go well. But then 2 years later, she brought me a picture of her baby, and I put it up near that bird-like shape that's in the abstract sky.
That's beautiful. I love the colors.
So I added the third child in there after it was finished.
Very nice. In the next picture? Oh, Scholder.
This was an idea we had one time. My husband and I were out at place where you can eat and listen to good music, and they had a checkerboard built into the wooden table. So he set down his glass, and I thought, a glass you can drink out of, a game, you know, and you can drink out of the piece.
That's wonderful.
So I sculpted the entire medieval style chess set with
That's
little
wonderful.
Openings.
Now, I don't know if we have any other pictures. Was that it? Or, oh, here's another one.
Oh, this is another one. Philip Carter Vineyard, near where I used to live in Front Royal, Virginia. They asked me to do a painting of their scene. And I thought
gorgeous
it was a little
area.
bland until I added the kid. So I added the kid, and there's like a yellow dog laying on her lap.
Now, I noticed you're using a lot of primary and secondary colors in your paintings. This one is gorgeous. That looks like a photograph.
Oh, thank you. This one helped me through a really hard time in life. The pose came from a college assignment that was done much smaller. Murray Tinkelman, that favorite professor of all time for me, had assigned us to paint a tearful farewell. And then I did this life-size. It's at least 5 feet high.
Oh, that's wonderful painting. I love that.
But it was little babies, because it was when my son was very sick. And so I painted them around us.
And this one?
This is, again, near where I lived. You see a lot of Virginia kind of scenes. I just got into learning how to paint horses.
And the reflections also are you're very good with reflections.
Oh, I think reflections add something to the work because it gives it balance.
Well, I think, too, when people are doing something like the reflection that you have in the water here in the boat is so wonderful. Well, Elizabeth, we've just enjoyed having you on the show. Hopefully you'll come back again and see us.
Oh, thank you.
And we're going to have to say goodbye for tonight, but we'll hope you come back next week. Thank you.
It was a pleasure. Thank you, Pearl.
I joined the National Guard and never thought I'd be saving lives.
It's more than money for college. It's built my character and given me a sense of accomplishment. Now I'm on a career path, and I'm the leader of my team.
I put on the uniform, and I have a whole new outlook on life. Country, community, family. That's what matters most to me. If that matters to you, go to 1-800-GO-GUARD.com.
3 children die every minute because they don't have access to clean drinking water. Let's do what it takes to save a child.